Okay. Yeah. We can wait a little bit. Yeah. What was your name? Vincent? Okay. Yeah. Oh, okay. You bring your laptop as well? Okay. Here you guys sign in using the QR code. Should I put a link in chat too? No. Uh, uh, maybe. There's the link for the sign in form. Sure. Start now. Okay. Did everyone sign in? No, you can just sign in later. But yeah. All right, everyone. Welcome to the malware analysis workshop. My name is Ari Twerkson. I'm the FAST director of malware. Um, so I guess I'll just start off with a scenario. So picture this. Bob is a finance member on a company. One day he receives an email from a trustworthy source. Maybe it's a coworker named Brenda or something. And it says like important financial status information in 2024. And there's like a link attached to it. Um, and so Bob clicks that link. And then what he doesn't know is that he actually received a malware because he thought it was trustworthy, but it actually isn't. And then now that malware is probably connecting to his computer, connecting to the hacker's servers. And now it's probably doing stuff in the background, like stealing his data, but he doesn't know that because it's maybe using some methods to hide that. So it's running in the background. So business as usual, Bob continues. He doesn't realize it's going on in the background, but he doesn't realize that his access has now been on the dark web and is now for everyone being sold across maybe not just his data, but also the company's data because it might have been spread to other devices as well. And then so the board finds out of the company. Um, they notice that they're losing millions of dollars a second. And so they get mad at Bob because they find out that he's the one that clicked on the link and spread the virus. And so Bob is freaking out. The company's losing dollars. Um, and so he loses his reputation. He loses his job and even his sanity. And then the business collapses. So what happened here? Bob got an email from someone named Brendo. He thought was his coworker. It actually turned out to be a hacker who sent an email that replicated a trustworthy source, and that contained malware. That malware connected to the servers, the hacker servers, and then the data from the company was being sold, and that led to the downfall of the company. So you might not think it's as easy as that to happen, but it really is, honestly. Like if I go to my virtual machine, I can show you just from a simple Google search. Let's say I want to download Blender or something. Blender download Blender. This is probably the official website. But if you accidentally click on maybe let me see. But you probably won't scroll this far down. But usually there's links at the top that say like sponsored or something. Those links are you have to watch out for them because sometimes hackers pay companies or hackers get paid to put links that contain malware, and they kind of replicate it. They kind of replicate these sites to look exactly like it, but then maybe they might replace this download button with like a malware, and that might mess it up. And so people might fall for that. Um, Another method might be through YouTube. I have like a machine as well. Maybe I want to get Photoshop for free. And you might not think people fall for this, but people actually do. I was one of them. So um, there's even ads right here. This could possibly contain malware, but for instance, this one right here, maybe this one, how to download and use Photoshop for free. If you go to the description, sometimes they'll have a download link, which contains like a password to that download. And the reason why they have a password is so that the files can't get scanned. It might be an actual like crack that is still illegal, but it still might actually work. But sometimes they might actually contain a virus, and then they use the password to hide that because by having a password, it doesn't automatically get detected and scanned by the by the website they uploaded to. Now another method might be through Outlook. So, see here. So if we go to my email, hopefully I don't leak anything, but I have this handshake email that I received. Um, I actually made another copy of it by forwarding it to myself. But if you'll notice this link right here that says this new job, if you click on it, this is the actual handshake email, and it takes you to their actual login. But if you click on mine, which has the slight underline, people might not catch on to that, and they might click on it. This isn't an actual virus or anything; it's just a fake website. But it could lead to you being tracked, having your information stolen, things like that. But that's just one of the other methods the hackers use, and why it's important to watch out for them. So from here, I can go ahead and we'll have another activity later, but we'll go ahead and run through a try hack me room because I did not think about the school not allowing you to download malware samples using their Wi-Fi. Um, and they did not, I tried it before, they didn't let me do that. So we're gonna have to just go through the malware website on, or the malware room on try hack me and use their machine instead. Yeah, so go ahead and start here. Has anyone here actually been through this specific room on try hack me? No. That's good. Yeah, I can post that. If you want to make it, go ahead and make an account for Track. You can do that as well on your own computer. It's up to you, but I'll go ahead and run through it. And if you don't want to try Hack Me, it's just like a cybersecurity learning resource. There's like a paid version where some rooms go into deeper detail of a topic, but honestly, you can just look those up on YouTube. They have a bunch of walkthroughs that you can just follow. But yeah, we'll go ahead and get started in this room. So this is an introductory lesson to malware and malware analysis. It's going to teach us the basics, just the fundamentals. And then after that, I'll go ahead and show you guys what it actually kind of looks like in like an online system. So malware is such a prevalent topic in cybersecurity and often an unfortunately recurring theme among global news today. Not only is malware analysis a form of incident response, but is also helpful in understanding how the behaviors of variants of malware results in their respective categorization. This room will be a practical introduction to the techniques and tools used throughout malware analysis. It's going to be brief, and we'll expand on these topics in a lot more depth in the future. When analyzing malware, it's important to consider the following. Point of entry, is it through spam, the email filtering miss, maybe the user opened the attachment, like I showed before. Um, we're going to go ahead and review our spam filters and train users for better prevention. We're going to look at some indicators that might have been executed on the machine. These could be things known as indicators of compromise that might show, hey, this file downloading might be a malware because of a certain maybe the metadata is slightly off compared to like a normal file. Are there any files, processes, or perhaps any attempt of unordinary communication? Maybe there's any HTTP requests going on. It's maybe to foreign countries. That might be an indicator of compromise. And how does the malware perform? This is known as dynamic analysis. So there's two types. There's static analysis and dynamic analysis. I think this room only covers static analysis, which is just like looking at the file without actually running it, whereas dynamic analysis is actually running the file and see how it operates. Um, but yeah, does it attempt to infect other devices? Does it encrypt files or install anything like a backdoor remote access tool? And can we ultimately prevent or detect future infection, which is the point of malware analysis? Um, the careers in that field, you might see yourself as like a security operations center where they analyze files. They use things like Wireshark where they can look at the network traffic, see what comes in, what comes out. So on to the next task. So there's two types of malware, targeted and mass campaign. A targeted attack is just as targeted. In most cases, malware attacks that occur this way are created for a specific purpose against a specific target. A great example of this type of purpose could be the dark hotel malware, which is designed to steal information such as authentication details from specific government officials. On the other hand, there's mass campaign, which can be akin to many real-life examples and is the most common type of attacks because it is generally sent to the public. The entire purpose of this attack is to infect as many devices as possible and perform whatever it may be, regardless of target. How they do this is by, if you click on an email, maybe it spreads across the network to other devices. Now, companies such as Kaspersky, to name one, track these campaigns known as APTs, Advanced Persistent Threats, and they report on their infection rate and indicators once akin to the real-life spread of a virus from the World Health Organization. So this is what malware analysis is. I guess they had a report on the malware campaign, this Crouching Getty malware campaign, which targets industrial machinery, manufacturing, pharmaceutical, construction, education, and information technology fields. So you can tell that's why this is what a mass campaign is. It targets multiple fields, multiple people, just the general public. Whilst this variant is technically targeted, talking about this one in specific, Crouching Getty, it is a rather large scope of this variant of malware and can be considered a mass campaign attack. So some of the questions, what is a famous example of a targeted attack as malware that targeted Iran? If you look that one up, I'm pretty sure it's Skynet, or not Skynet. Starts with S. Stuxnet, that's what it was. I'm pretty sure that's the Stuxnet. Okay, yeah, that was the one. So that's another famous attack. Known as a ransomware that used Eternal Blue exploit in a mass campaign attack. I believe that one was WannaCry. Okay, yeah. So WannaCry is a ransomware, which essentially is malware, but it encrypts your files. And so it kind of holds them hostage and kind of poses a ransom where you have to pay in order to get those files decrypted. Uh, Moving to the next steps. Much like any interaction with an operating system, there is always remnants of such activity, even if there is a little trace. Unfortunately, malware is largely intrusive, sense that it leaves quite an extensive page material of evidence, which is perfect for analyzers. The ultimate process of a malware attack can be broken down into a few broad steps. Delivery, execution, maintaining persistence sometimes, and propagation always. Um, these steps will generate lots of data, name or network traffic, such as communicating with hosts, file system interaction, like a read, writes, modifications. And malware is essentially classified based upon the behaviors it produces to perform the steps listed above. For famous example, WannaCry performs all four of these steps, talking about delivery, execution, maintaining persistence, and also propagation. So the first step is delivery. This could be many methods to with you via USB or PDF attachments through phishing campaigns for vulnerability remediation. And then the second step would be execution, which is the main part of how we classify malware. What does it actually do? If it encrypts files, it's ransomware. If it records information like keystrokes or displays adware, we can classify that as spyware. We can only understand this stage through analyzing the sample, which is why analysis is important and what we're going to be covering in the room. And then the third part, which we won't really be covering, is maintaining persistence. It wouldn't make much sense for malware authors to go through all the trouble of developing a piece of code that is capable of execution just for it to execute, and then it's gone, unless you have a very specific agent. There's an expensive report on the specific malware. Skip that. The fourth one would be persistence, which is the stage that causes malware to be so noisy. Malware employs many techniques, which we'll be covering in depth most of the time. Actually, this stage is to make sure that the execution is worth its while. That could be via spreading to other devices, infecting the whole network, which is why these mass campaigns occur. And then there's propagation. If you can infect one device, why not infect more while you're at it? This is another reason why malware can be so noticeable because it's spreading to other devices, other traffic. It's causing a lot of traffic in the network. Host discovery generates a lot of network traffic. I'll put this later. In summary, there are two categories of fingerprints that malware may leave behind on a host after attack. The first one is host-based signatures. This one's kind of important. These are generally speaking the results of execution and any persistence performed by the malware. For example, has a file been encrypted? Has any additional software been installed? Those are two of many host-based signatures that are useful to know how to prevent and check against further inspection. And then there's also network-based signatures, which is the classification of signatures. Um, this classification of signatures are the observation of any networking communication taking place during delivery, execution, and propagation. For example, in ransomware, where has the malware contacted for Bitcoin payments, such as in the case of WannaCry, looking for large amounts of Samba protocol communication attempts is a great indication of infection due to the use of eternal blue, which is widely known and widely reported, which is why it causes a lot of communication attempts to pop up. So what is the first essential step of a malware attack? We can see that one was delivery. And then the second one, we can see that was execution. And then the type of signature used to classify remnants of an infection on a host, that one would be the host-based signature. And then what is the name of other classification of signatures used after a malware attack? That one would be network-based signatures. Okay, so like I mentioned before, I guess this part would just go over static analysis versus dynamic analysis. As brief, static analysis is used to gain a high-level abstraction of the sample. It can be fairly simple to decide if a piece of code is malicious or not with this method alone, but this will be discussed later. At its core, this method is of the analysis of the sample at the state it presents itself without executing the code. So just looking at it in its current state without actually executing code. Employing the use of techniques such as signature analysis via checksums, which we'll see later on, and safe analysis of malware, which includes using a virtual machine where you can safely test these in like a sandbox type of environment. And then there's also dynamic analysis, which is a lot more involved and is where the abstraction of the sample is largely built upon. Dynamic analysis essentially involves executing the sample and observing what happens. This is, of course, is not safe, which is why we have sandbox environments for virtual machines. And if the sample turns out to be ransomware, you've now lost your files because it encrypts the files. Uh, if it's capable of propagating via traversing a network, you just infected your local area network. Okay, makes sense. So this one's just trying to go over the tools that are being used. We'll see them later. So this will allow us to actually start the machine. Um, actually close this one. So while that's loading, you can finish the task. I think this is just talking about how you can access it via your own virtual machine. But for this, it's a lot easier to just use this start machine button because it comes with all the tools pre-installed. So we'll go ahead and read over this while the machine loads. MD5 checksums are a prominent attribute in the malware community. Because there can be many variants of the family of ransomware, these MD5 checksums are cryptographic fingerprints of the files. This allows uniform identification throughout the community, especially with automated sandboxes. For example, say you have 20 files of unknown origin. You were able to identify their genus using their MD5 sum against websites such as VirusTotal if that MD5 checksum has been previously analyzed, removing all the legwork for us. So VirusTotal is a website that just has like a database of a lot of malware samples that are uploaded by the community. Um, and these MD5 checksums are kind of like their what like defines what the malware is. Of course, that can be hidden as well, but that is largely used to determine whether the malware is predetermined to be safe or malicious. Navigate to the task folder on the desktop. Okay, so you actually go there. So we'll see later on when this machine opens. These three files look like normal files, and they might actually be innocent or not, depending on what this room set them as. But it says here, sure, these are common names of executables, but anyone can name an executable as whatever they like. Just because it says VLC doesn't mean it is indeed the VLC application. And this is where identifying their MD5 checksum is useful, as no matter the name, their MD5 reveals its true identity. What they mean by that is you can name it whatever you want, you can change the icon to whatever you want, and you can make it look like another file. You can probably add another extension on top of this. Like you can put, how it says .exe right here, you can put .pdf after that or something. Or maybe before .exe it says .pdf to kind of hide that it's an exe file. And then we'll see that there is hashtag application, which actually shows you the MD5 of each file. Uh, okay, identify the MD5 checksums of three files provided in task 7. You can use Control C and Control V. So we'll see that when the machine opens up. But for now, we can move on to the next one. Okay, so what's going to happen is it's going to be there's going to be directories that pop up. Um, I'll be able to click on them. I'll be able to look at the properties of each file. Um, these these files in specific. I'll be able to check their MD5 checksum, and then I'll be able to copy that to the website. We'll go ahead and have that open already. Just to see what it looks like. So what you do is you can either directly upload a file or a URL, maybe it's a website, or you can just search for the URL, the IP address, the domain, or the file hash, or the MD5 checksum, which is basically what that is. And then from there, it'll show you all the information about the malware samples. And yeah, VirusTotal is probably one of the biggest malware analysis tools for online purposes. You can download your own on your own computer. Um, we're not going to go too far in depth with that, which is why we're going to just stick to the online tools that we can use because they're the most convenient. And they kind of pretty much show you like basically everything that's included within the tools that you have to download. Um, this is almost done. Okay, so here we have our own little virtual machine inside the website, TryHackMe. Um, I think this folder contains each step for each task that you need. Um, minimize that. And then this one contains all the tools that it was talking about earlier. It has static tools. These are all the static tools it has. It also has IDA, and then there's also dynamic tools as well, and other ones included. But For now, the task just wants us to see. This is task 7. Okay, task 7 directory. It wants us to check the MD5 checksum of each file. So for instance, if we right click on AWS to see properties, normally this isn't included, but here's a file hashes tag or tab that was pre-installed with this room. And so you can see here all the different hashes, SHA-256. You might be familiar with some of them, but the one they're asking for is MD5. And so we can see that the MD5 checksum of AWS is right here. Go ahead and copy that. There it is. And then it's also asking for a net logo. And their MD5 as well. And then the one for VLC. Now we have to use virus total. So we're actually going to use virus total here and check if the file is actually malicious or not. So for each hash, we're going to check the AWS MD5 checksum first. You go ahead, just type it in or copy and paste it into virus total. Then it should pop a sample. Yeah, so this one's been analyzed before. What this means, 0 out of 72, which means uh, it's pretty much clean. There's no malware that's been detected by all these different companies. You can see some of them might look familiar. Um, let's see, this Kaspersky, Microsoft. Yeah, there's a lot of just security companies. There's a Vast as well. But yeah, it's been undetected by all of them, so this one's safe to assume that it is safe. Does virus total report this MD5 checksum as malicious? No. And then net logo and check this one. Go ahead and put that one in. And so it looks like one security vendor flagged this as malicious, but it doesn't necessarily mean it is, just because on this side, it would show you, oh, these are additional companies as well. Okay, so there's only one suspicious activity that's been detected, which is might just be like a false positive where it looks like it's harmless, but it's actually safe. And so the majority of these say that it's undetected. So we're just going to assume that it is safe and that this was just a false positive. Oh, it's not malicious. Okay, yeah. So that one wasn't malicious as well. Um, for a VLC, we can go ahead and see here. This one's also probably not malicious as well. And it just tells you at the top anyways. No security vendors flagged this file as malicious. You can safely assume that it is safe. All right, now we're going to move on to obfuscation, being able to see whether the file is using any methods to hide itself or maybe change its properties, make it be undetected, make it look like a harmless file. Let's see here. There are a few provided tools on the Windows instance that are capable of identifying the compiler slash packer of a file. However, PEID, which is one of the tools here, has a huge database and is a great tool for this. Moreover, just because a file doesn't have the .exe extension doesn't mean it isn't an actual executable. For instance, it can have the .jpg extension, still be an executable piece of code. It's out of scope for this room. but files have identifying attributes within its hex known as file headers. For example, the hex value of an executable is always 4D5A. So if a file with a JPG file or .jpg file has the hex header of 4D5A, then it's obviously not a JPG file because that would be an executable file. It's just being masked as or being masked as a JPG file. Okay, so we're going to look at the tool PEID. If we go into, it's asking us to go into task 9. To answer the question. Okay. Okay, so it's asking to analyze these two files right here. Uh, then we'll also go ahead and open up PEID, which is a static analysis tool. PE tools, PEID. And there it is. So all we have to do is pretty much just drag and drop the file into the PEID, and that will tell us all this information. Um, you can see at the bottom, it wants us to detect the signature. This is the signature of the file. Um, well, this is the packer. Sorry. So it's asking us, what does PEID suggest this file that we just dropped in? This DLL file is being packed with. And DLL just stands for Dynamic Link Library. Basically, when it's like a compilation of programs that's combined into a library, which is imported into another program. So this is basically just an import. And it says that this is being packed with Microsoft Visual C++. Um, there's that. And then for the other one, you can go ahead and drag and drop that one. And that's also being used the same packer. And I think the next task goes into what exactly packing is and obfuscation. Okay, so packing is one form of obfuscation that malware authors employ to prevent the analysis of programs. There are both legitimate and malicious reasons as to why the author of a program would do this. For example, legitimate reason is the protection of intellectual property. Um, whilst I'm one for open source as much as the next person here, not every organization has the same mindset. In the same token, just because you write a program, why should everyone have the right to copy your project? This is a good point. This is one of the justifiable reasons for obfuscation and is yours at the end of the day. However, malware authors use this technique, such as backing, for the same reasons, but also for the intent to prevent people like us, malware analysis, or using malware analysis to reverse it and understand its behaviors, ultimately aim of achieving infection. So how packing works is out of scope for this room, but I hope to be able to delve into topics like these later on. Blah blah blah. So the task here is to identify whether or not this file, and we'll go ahead to the file, task 10, this one right here. Uh, we can check what packer it's using. And we can see it's just using this FSG one. And I think that's the answer here. Yeah, there it is. That's the packer. And then now we're actually going to go over what the difference between packed and non-packed code is. This is another example of why PEID is a fantastic little tool. With this huge data set of known packers, it is arguably one of the better ones at being able to fingerprint the names of packers / obfuscators within an application. Whilst this tool has a huge database, it doesn't have every packer out there, especially if an author requests their own. PEID will have no way of identifying the packer used. And in cases like this, it's more about what PEID doesn't tell us rather than what it does. So if we're going to look at this, we can go to task 11. It's a different file. We'll go ahead and drop that in PEID, and we can see it is using the same packer. In this instance, PEID is able to detect what packer has been used to obfuscate the code. Whilst PEID is capable of detecting the possibility of packers being used, it is not automatically it is not able to automatically de-obfuscate them. This is a process we'll have to do manually at a later stage. After confirming that this file is packed, which is shown right here, we can open it up with IDA Pro, which is, go ahead and open that up. This is another static analysis tool, but it is a disassembly tool, which we'll go over later. But for now, we can just open that up, and then I think it's going to ask us to open the same file. There's a couple prompts here. We're going to disassemble a new file or disassemble. And I think it wants us to import or open up. Which one is this? Task 11. Okay, so yeah, it did have an extension. It was default set to this, which is why it didn't pop up. Click on all files, it'll show all the files, including this one. And we can go ahead and open that one up. You just make sure this says portable executable, and then click OK. Okay, from here, the task is just pretty much asking us to look at the imports. This tab right here stands for imports. Let's see right here. So we can see there's only 2 imports, which is kind of small for a program. Yeah, we can see that there are only 2 imports in this program. That's a bit bizarre. The use of IDA free will be developed upon as it is advanced of a kit. But essentially, we can see the flow of the program's execution in the main tab, which is what this is. And it's using assembly, which is a low-level language. If we go back to the imports, and it's just giving an example of a file that isn't obfuscated. It would have a much larger import count instead of just 2 files, and it would have a giant graph like this. And yeah, all the imports would look like that for a normal non-obfuscated file. So next one. So now we're going to go ahead and look at strings. Okay, so strings are essentially the ASCII/text contents of a program. This could be anything from passwords for self-extracting zips to Bitcoin addresses and ransomware samples. Just as in that example above, when analyzing the contents of these strings, can sometimes paint a fairly indicative picture of the behaviors of the program. Bitcoin wallets being used in ransomware. You'll be able to see like the Bitcoin addresses. You'll see what they look like, but that kind of indicates that it's being used as like a Bitcoin payment for the ransomware attacks. So this one wants us to open a command prompt on the Windows machine and navigate to the directory. Let's see. So open up command prompt, CMD for short. And it wants us to navigate to this directory using this command. So what this means is basically saying at the beginning it says CD, which basically stands for change directory. You can see right now this directory is the main one with users analysis. This is the base directory. And then we want to use CD to change into this directory. Sysinternal suite, which is just a tool we want to open. This will put us in that directory. See, now it changed into that directory, sysinternal suite. Now, I think there's a program in here called strings. Yeah, we're going to use Microsoft's internal strings program to output the retained strings within the specified files or file in task 12, which we can see task 12. So we have two files here. Um, it wants us to use this file first. And we can see it doesn't really say what the file is, doesn't really give much information, it's kind of hidden. Um, so we're going to go ahead and use the command here. So this will open up the program strings, which is found inside this folder. Um, so here the syntax is strings, and then the directory we're using, the directory we want to use or use strings on the file, which is this one right here, and make sure to put that in quotes so it specifies that it is a directory or the destination. Click agree. And this is going to give us a lot of strings. This isn't even all of them inside the file, but this is a good, like, I'm not sure how much, it's like 20% or something, 10%. Um, yeah, you can keep on scrolling up. You'll see it's pretty long, but it's even just like 20% of the code or the strings inside the file. So let's see here. You'll find the programs often contain large amount of strings, and using the strings tool, Compass internals may only display 10% of these. That and it's not exactly practical scrolling up through a terminal or stuff like this. Launch the application within tools, this directory right here, PE Explorer. So we'll get to open up that one. PE tools, PE Explorer. And then it's going to want us to grab that file and put it in PE Explorer. PE just stands for portable executable. Um, Continue. Okay, so here we have some information. You'll be presented with the following, indicating that it has successfully imported, which is what we see right here. And now, as I was talking about earlier, we can see the imports. If you go to View, Import, and then there's all the DLL files. Looks like there's 5 of them. Like I mentioned before, these are dynamic linked libraries. Those are the file types, and they're just loaded into other programs. What is a URL that is outputted after using strings? We'll do that one second. I think we should do this one first. How many unique imports are there? We can see that there's 5 right here. Okay, and what is a URL that is outputted after using strings? So we're gonna look through this entire, we're not gonna scroll through it, but we're gonna use a command here. If we go back and use that same strings command in order to pop that text up, we'll go ahead and put that in. But instead of pressing enter, we're gonna add a feature which is known as a pipeline, which will allow us to put in a second command after this first command, the strings command. And the command we want to do is find string, which is basically like a control F version of on command prompt. So this is our own control F. It'll help us find what we're looking for, which is a URL. And URLs, as we know them, they typically end in .com. So we're going to use find string and then in quotes to specify what we're going to search for, .com. So in total, this is strings, the program, and then in quotes, the directory of the actual file we're analyzing, and then this pipeline to add the second command, which is find string, our own control F program, and then in quotes.com, which is the string we're looking for. And we see here There's two websites that it's looking at or that it found within the strings of that specific file. And it's asking what is the URL that is output after using strings. Um, it's probably going to be this longer one. Let's go ahead and try that one. Okay, yeah, it was that one. And then we're going to go ahead and dive a little deeper into imports. All right, so the classification of IDA freeware is arguably as the tool can be used is arguable as the tool can be used for both statistic and dynamic analysis. Without going too much in depth regarding the differences, there are two classifications of tools like IDA freeware. We can see that it was under the section disassembly, so we're going to go ahead and consider that as a disassembly tool. But there are two types, disassemblers and debuggers. For contextual sake, disassemblers reverse the compiled code of a program from machine code, which is like zeros and ones, to human readable instructions assembly, which is the low level language we were looking at earlier. This is limited to how the program represents itself in its current state. If the contents of an executable changes during execution, disassemblers will not reflect this. While debuggers, on the other hand, debuggers deploy the same techniques as disassemblers. Um, they essentially facilitate execution of their program, where an analyzer can view the changes made throughout each step of the program. These tools are great because a true picture of the program presents itself. However, if it is indeed malicious, you have now been infected. Um, so what it means by each step of the program is in a program, when you look at the code, it'll analyze each line of code and just step through each line of code. This just help you determine basically what happens at each step, see the results in live action. With enough understanding, an analyzer can introduce breakpoints or pauses at various stages of the program where the program will execute up until a breakpoint. So you can place that breakpoint after a certain amount of steps to see how the program executes until that step. For example, sticking with the idea of ransomware, an analyzer can create a breakpoint within the application prior to the actual stage of encryption of the files. This facilitates this facilitates an analyzer to view the various changes of a program during execution, such as unpacking or connecting to a remote server, such as that in a botnet, up until the point of malicious infection. So this is basically like I guess for example, in a use for this breakpoint in a ransomware is like I said before, putting it up to the stage of encryption of files so that you can see exactly where it encrypts the files and then see what it does before that. For this room, we'll be using IDA freeware with the context of statistical analysis. We're going to walk through how to import an executable into IDA freeware. So we have it open right here. We're going to go ahead and open that. Okay. Disassemble a new file. So we're going to look at this file right here, install. This is in what test is this? Test 13. I think it's this file. So like before we make sure it's portable executable and then click OK. We don't need this. Okay, here we go. Uh, and so it wants us to look at the imports. Navigate to the directory and open it, just like we did in the example. Again, this may take a few seconds. Okay, so it wants us to see how many references to the library MSI are in the imports tab. So if we go here, I think it's this one. Yeah, this one right here, imports. It's asking us to see how many references to MSI, which is basically just like an executable file. We can actually do Control F for here, and it'll pop up that search box. And if we look up MSI, there it is. We can see one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine of them. Let's see, nine. Okay, yeah. So there's nine of them, nine MSI imports. Let's see. Okay. Now the last test would be to. It's gonna have us do it on our own this time. And we're gonna be looking at the file complex calculator. Okay, so it's gonna be in task 14, complex calculator. Then we just answer all the questions. Okay. Um, for this one, if anyone wants to participate, you guys want to answer any of these questions? If you guys want to help me, I'll give you candy. What is the MD5 checksum of this file? So how would I go about doing that? Yeah.
File,
Okay.
go to properties,
Okay.
and go to file hash.
File hashes.
This is
85. Yep. I think that should be it. All right. Candy. Nice. Okay. Does virus report or virus total report this file as malicious? Does anyone know how to do that? I'll go to the virus total. Okay. Put in the hash. Okay. It looks pretty safe. Yeah. It says Trojan malware. Thanks, Brad, for helping us find that. Oh, shit. Okay. So what do you guys think? Is it malicious or is it safe? Probably. What was that? So you guys think no? Okay, that was wrong. I think, yeah, it says right here, Trojan malware. That's probably not a false positive because it named like the direct name of the actual malware. Uh, so that's why it's malicious, even though most of them were undetected. Okay, and then the next one, what is the last string outputted using the strings tool? Does anyone know how to do that? Yeah, command line. Okay. Um, I'm still in the right category. Okay. Then what do I do from here? Strings, the file name, or the file directory. Yep. I'll just um, complex. I think it's a docs.exe. Um, and then just look for a specific string. Oh, just the last one. Okay. DH. Yep, you're right. All right. Last one is what is the output of PEID when trying to detect what packer is used by the file? How do we do that? Using PEID. PEID. All right, so how do we do this? Anyone? Chat? I wonder if the actual chat knows. Okay. All right, so we're gonna go ahead just use PEID and then This is one of the first things we did. We just dragged complex calculator into there, and then this should give us the packer. But it says nothing found. I think that's the answer here. Yep. Okay. All right. And there's the room. Okay. All right. Let's see. There was another thing I wanted to show you guys. Okay, so there's this website you can use that's a little better than VirusTotal, and it works exactly kind of like an actual malware analysis tool called any dot. Yeah, so you can sign in. It specifically asks for a business email, so you're gonna have to use like your CBP email, but it's safe. It's a malware analysis tool. So you just sign in. Um, thought I was already signed in, but yeah. Um, sure, I think I have my password saved. One second. Okay, there we go. Okay, so like I said before, this is another online malware analysis tool that goes a little more in depth than VirusTotal. We can see the reports of malware samples actually being uploaded kind of in real time, actually. Um, we'll see it refresh in a bit, I think. But yeah, some of these, they've all been reported by real people. Some of them are malicious, some of them no threats detected. If you go ahead and click on one of them, let's see if there's any executables. So like this one, for example, an executable, the ones like we've been looking at before at the try hack me room. But go ahead and see here. There's a little video for us showing what it does. But okay, so yeah, it'll give you notifications of all these processes being created, um, child processes being created, and we can see kind of at the bottom here, you can see it's actually being requested from Germany. It's kind of foreign nation. And then you can see on the bottom right, there's a bunch of processes. And you click on them, and you can see why they're being notified as malicious. So this drops, okay, so this is just warnings right here. process drops legitimate Windows executable. Um, maybe this one. Yeah, this one has more malicious activities that are actually dangerous. Uh, and then let's see, it says connects to CNC server. That's pretty dangerous. X worm. That kind of sounds like uh, a virus. Suricata is probably the name of the group. It creates files in the startup directory, so that's probably a persistence method. If it creates files in the startup directory, that'll mean that every time you start the computer, um, this malware will turn on and run, and yeah, auto run value. So it does run on startup, meaning every time you turn on a computer, it'll start up. Uses task scheduler to run other applications. It's probably manipulating the system even further. And you can click on these right here, such as PE, portable executable. It does show you these certain values. I think there's like the hash values. Yeah, there's hash values right here. So what we looked at before, MD5 checksum. Um, so this is pretty much everything that's from the try hack me room, excluding the IDA. But then we can scroll down, we can see things like the import hashes, compilation date. So there's some DLL, there's an import right there. Uh, and you can see the actual configuration of the file that's being executed. So, okay, we can see right here, C2, that's probably an address, IP address leading to their own C2 server. So they're actually persisting and they're communicating. And yeah, right here, XWorm, that's the name of the virus. It's a Trojan. It's a Trojan, so it's sold as a malware as a service. Uh, and yeah, before it does start with a phishing email. There it is. Multi-stage attack, it persists. Let's see. The keys is sort of the encryption method that it uses. So we can see that. So yeah, this looks pretty malicious. It does have everything that a virus would have. There's other things as well. This just does the process dump, like runtime and all that. And you can see here indicators of compromise actually. So here's the SHA-256 of it, the hash. You can see all the DNS requests, the connections it makes, all those connections from Germany that you saw earlier. So these are big indicators of compromise because it shows that it's trying to connect to a server uh, and access different websites. Uh, and yeah, here's a file that it drops on startup security health system tray. It'll probably, let me see if it shows.
I think Ari's laptop just died. That's so unfortunate. Well, is there
Do
anything
you have a
else
charger? Do you have a charger? What laptop is it?
That's tough. Well,
What laptop is it?
okay, for sure. I guess we could wrap it up. Happy Halloween, everyone.
That was spooky.
That was pretty spooky.
That
But
was
for the
spooky.
people on Zoom, I hope that was pretty helpful. I think we pretty much ended it with just talking about the malware analysis website. So that'll be all for this meeting, and I hope to see you guys next week for the SOC collab. See you, everyone.